take a seat, please. See how good they are?
They are, they're just so wow.
Because I'm mean. Welcome. I hope you enjoyed your first workshops this morning. This general session is a real treat. I think for us, it's the first time we've tried something like this, and I'm sure Deputy LeBlanc will be telling you that it's the first time for him as well. Put a lot of thought and planning in this. I'd like to thank the law enforcement students because they brought the message to us. But I expect that you will be polite and respectful as usual, that you will ask good questions as usual. I would ask that if you ask a couple questions, let somebody else have an opportunity to ask some questions because some people are a little more quiet. If at any time you get uncomfortable, I'll be standing right at the back of the room and you can come find me. Not saying that that's going to happen, but you never know. We'd just like to have that safety net available. And at this time, I will introduce the man who parked in my parking space, even though there was a sign that said Vocational Director Parking, Deputy LeBlanc.
Good morning. Come on, I want you to participate from the word go, okay? We've been doing this at the jail now for about 1.5 years, where we bring the law enforcement students, they come and do a tour, then we go in the library, we do a Q&A session about drug addiction. It's not just about the drugs in which you're using, it's about what the drugs are making you do. We have 3 willing volunteers here today. These are people, they are incarcerated right now at the Cumberland County Jail. They do not have their freedom because of choices that they've made. That's what we call this program, choices. One of the biggest things I want to hit home is that I hear all the time in this high school. Most of you probably already recognize me because I'm in here all the time doing different things.
I know.
How many, whether it's you or your friends, use marijuana? I don't want to know who does, but you hear the comment, it's only marijuana. Anybody? Come on, be honest. Okay. Ladies, what did you start with?
Marijuana, pot, sure.
Okay. Who ended up using heroin? Anybody? Heroin. Crack? Okay. Who has committed crimes to support their drug habits? 2 out of 3. My goal is not only to educate you a little bit on what goes on with the drugs. If we can reach 2, 3, 4 of you that may be on that fence, all of us over here are doing our jobs. Everybody over here are people that are in the school all the time. We're not just here because our department says go. Every one of us are here because we want to be a part of the community, especially the kids. This is important. So we're going to talk about what they've done, what they've used. We're going to even talk about, okay, girls in the room, how many someday plan on having children and a family? Okay? Some of these girls are going to tell you about how they have lost their kids because of their drug use. 1 or 2 of them may tell you about how not only do they lose their kids, it's very sad that they will never get their children back because of the choices in which they've made. So after they give you a little bit of synopsis about their history, we're going to have Mr. McDermott do some questions, and then we're going to go from here and you guys get to ask your stuff. I ask that you be respectful. We have about 500 inmates at the county jail. Over the years, I've been one of the field training officers. And one of the first things I tell new young officers is just because they're in jail, and please excuse my bluntness, they're not all assholes. There's some really good people. It's the bad choices in which they've done to get them there. Once they get detoxed and start getting into the programs that are at the jail, they're really decent people, a lot of them. These three have had a lot of interaction with. Also, CPO Mark Renner, who also comes down here and teaches as well. So we know these people. We know what they're like. And they're here because they're hoping to also help make that change and hopefully lead you on the right choices. Is this the group that we have the seniors in?
Yes.
What's tomorrow night? I'm hoping that nobody on this wall over here has to go to something tomorrow night because you've made a bad choice. I can't tell you not to drink. I'm not your parent. I can't tell you not to do drugs. I'm not your parent. I hope you don't. But if you do make a foolish or a bad choice, I'm hoping you're not behind the wheel and affect so many other people. I'm hoping that tomorrow those seniors have one of the best experiences of their young lives. So with that, I'm going to go to each girl, tell them what they started with, what they ended with in drugs, and why they're here. Now, talk about a small world, I'm going to throw you right out there. Now, I also want you three to introduce yourself. It's a small world. She's in jail because of an officer in this room doing their job. That's how small this room is. Trooper Philibrand and her, unfortunately, know each other on a professional level. So you never know. Okay? Who are you?
I'm Brittany.
Give me your full name.
I'm Brittany Cox. I'm originally from Sanford. That's where I grew up. I moved to Portland to get away from people, places, things. It's the biggest thing in addicts. Addiction and active addiction is, the people you're around, the places you are. But no matter where you go, it's there. I moved to Portland, and I caught a possession charge. I'm in jail for possession of crack cocaine. It's not my first possession charge. This charge actually made me a felon. I could be in prison. The next time I could be in prison for a very long time. I have lost 2 kids to the state. They're adopted. They got taken from me. This was before I even started using drugs. I got into an altercation at a bar one night, and a guy went to hit me, and I punched him, and he had epilepsy. And he went into a seizure, and he died 4 times, and he was in the hospital. The man is now mentally retarded for the rest of his life. And I got arrested for it. They took my kids away from me for it because of self-defense. I haven't seen my kids in 6 years. I started using, stole, I ruined my family. My family doesn't speak to me. I don't have friends. Most of my friends are actually dead because they've overdosed from drugs in the past 2 years. Everybody I grew up with, just about, is dead. I've been in jail since last September. 30 years old. I don't know, what else do you want me to tell them?
That's a good start for you. Why don't we go to the next one?
I'm Lindsay Dangler, and I'm from Kennebec County Jail. I got transferred to Cumberland County. No choice in that. I'm in for probation violation. In 2013, I got a domestic assault charge due to being under the influence of drugs and alcohol. I decided to not go to probation or domestic violence court because I was doing drugs. So they gave me a full probation revocation. I've been in jail for 6 months. I haven't been able to talk to my daughter. She's turned 4 since I've been in. But it's all because I was doing drugs and alcohol and the choices that I was making because of that.
You keep mentioning drugs. What? Started with
I
marijuana.
Yeah, I started smoking weed when I was 14 years old.
No big deal.
I dropped out of high school because I would have rather get high than go to school.
Where'd you graduate to for drugs?
Right before I came in, I started doing heroin and smoking crack. It's a good thing that I got arrested because I would have kept doing that heroin and smoking crack, and it wouldn't have been good. I found one of my friends dead from an overdose. And my daughter's standing right there, 3 years old. I had to watch him get put in a body bag, taken to get an autopsy. It's just not good.
Okay, let's jump to the next one. Get you off the hook for a few minutes.
Thanks. I'm Leah Doyle. Gosh, I have a huge record now. I've done things that I never in a million years ever would have thought I could have been capable of doing. I've hurt so many people close to me. I also started smoking pot when I was 13, and it was just pot. That turned into my best friend stealing her mom's prescription pills, because we read online that you could, snort them. It's one of those things that you think at the beginning, it's just for fun. You're just gonna go and party. You're good kids, you still play sports, you're still doing your homework. Slowly you stop doing your homework. Slowly there's somebody faster than you on the track, and slowly you're not showing up for practice, and then you're getting kicked off the team, and then you're not going to class, and you're just smoking pot, maybe drinking on the weekends at parties, prom. Yeah, you always get caught. Always get caught. But it's not even just getting caught. I mean, that's probably for the best. That's definitely, I kind of, through high school, and I started going to college. I thought I could do it all. Balance. There's no balance. If you're using drugs, there's no balance. They will overtake your life. It's terrible. And that's actually exactly what happened. It got to the point where I felt like I was functioning better, and I had more of a promising future when I was high. So I tried to keep that hidden. I was living two different things, as if we're not documented enough. Anyways, but it's one of those things that, I started to think that nobody would find out. I could just keep doing them. I had more courage. I would not have come here and spoken to you if I was sober. I'm sober now, and I'm doing it, and I'm fine with it. There was a time where I couldn't even, it got to the point where drugs turned into, literally, I couldn't do anything without it. Nothing. And that is just such a terrifying feeling, to need something like a substance to have fun or to be cool. And as much as cliche as that sounds, that's exactly what it is. I was using drugs because everybody else was doing it, and it was cool. It was something that everyone was doing. And I know it sounds so tacky, but that's exactly what it was. Same with smoking cigarettes, an addiction. Drinking, an addiction. Marijuana. After that, it was over. Nothing. I didn't really care about anything. We tried everything once, Yeah, like the double dare thing too. I'll do that. No, it's awful. It will ruin your life. It's terrible. You don't want anything to do with it. I have 3 kids, and I actually only see one regularly because their father just doesn't trust me. I've ruined that, and it's going to take years for me to get that back. It doesn't matter how well I do now. Eventually, I'm hoping that will happen, but I have friends. I've lived recently with people that have died because they got out and they just wanted to party at one time, that one prom night. Just that one time is all it takes, and you will die. I'm a convicted felon now for driving. I've stolen. I'm a felon for that as well, from somebody really close to me. Things that, even when you know that they're wrong as you're doing it, that you feel is your only option, because then it's not even a mental choice. It was like a chemical reaction in my body. I did drugs so much that I physically needed to have them so that I wouldn't get sick. It's disgusting. You don't want to be that person. Your teeth are rotten. You don't care about anything else. You don't want to go there. You have money for nothing. You like going to the movies? You guys like shopping? New shoes? Yeah, you won't have any of that, and you won't care about it if you're using drugs, because that's all you're going to be spending money on is drugs, and you're okay with that. You think people don't see it either. So many times I would go to work when I'd show up, or go to see family when I'd show up, and I would be absolutely greased and think that they wouldn't know. you know, they didn't notice. Well, the other day I saw one of my friends that ran into him, and she was polluted. And, oh, I'm doing really well, thought that I couldn't tell. And it was like complete role reversal. Oh my goodness, you look so stupid. Like, I looked so stupid, you know? And it's just, it's not healthy. I feel amazing. I'm conscious of like physical changes in my body now. I run, you know, I feel good. I'm trying to eat healthy. My mind is clear. I mean, you guys have your whole future. If I could go back and sit in that chair and listen to the people that came to my high school, you know, that had AIDS, which I don't, just saying. But just saying, like, there were people that came to my high school and sat in this very spot. I went to Saukville Valley. I mean, in the country, you don't think that stuff happens up there, but that's where it started for me. And yeah, I mean, if I had listened, oh my God, my life would be great, you know, because I had all those opportunities, everything that you have, and I just didn't. Don't smoke that fatty, just saying. You don't want anything to do with it.
Now, just so you guys are aware, none of this is scripted. It's so off the cuff today that until they get out of the cruiser that they were transported in down here, they didn't even know how many were going to be in the room that they were speaking to. Prior to today, it's been 10, 15. So this is big for them to be on this
He
level.
also told us we were going into classrooms. Yeah.
This is a classroom. It's a big classroom. So none of this is scripted. None of this is made up. The stories you're hearing is true. Drug addiction has become so bad. I don't know if any of you just saw the recent article that was done with the Freiburg Rescue and the Chief of Freiburg pod family. The big story is they're carrying Narcan on their rescue. Do you guys know what Narcan is? Anybody? Somebody?
It's a chemical they use to bring heroin overdose victims back from the dead.
Yes, it's a drug used that rescue uses to revive, resuscitate somebody who's literally dead. Brings them out of their drug overdose. Drug addiction is becoming so bad. Last week I sat down, we have one female unit at the jail, houses up to 86 females, and we're running pretty high right now, probably high 70s, low 80s. I was sitting down at a table and we were talking about the drug parties. It's so bad with the drug addictions that these people are going out buying Narcan illegally, bringing it to their party with the anticipation that somebody's going to die at one of these parties. How bad is it when you're going to a party? Who's going to a party tomorrow night? Come on, who's going to a party tomorrow night? Where's my seniors?
Liars.
Right.
Can you imagine going to a party, bringing a drug, hoping to revive one of your friends when they die? That's how bad drug addiction is in the Northeast right now. Right now, our heroin epidemic is probably the worst in the country with what they're cutting it with. So it's bad.
At least, but now, like, I can remember a year ago, I would be with a bunch of people getting high in a house, and somebody would overdose, and nobody would know what to do. They would freak out and just leave.
Leave you there.
Yeah.
To die. Run. Like, oh, the cops are coming. We gotta get out of here. like, because this person that was your friend is.
It's actually happened to me. I was actually with my niece's father, and we were at a friend of ours' house, and he was in the bathroom shooting up heroin. I was walking in and out of the house, and at first I thought he was just joking around. He was slumped over on the floor because he's a jackass like that, and he would do that to us. And you know, it did pop and be like, I'm just kidding. Well, 5 minutes went by, and there was somebody standing from me to her away in the bathroom, and he was too busy getting high shooting up coke to realize that his friend is dying on the floor. And I walked into the bathroom, and I'm like, you guys need to come out. I'm like, I need to use the bathroom. And Gary didn't move, and I slapped him in the forehead, and his head went back, and his whole face was gray. And every adult in that house, was about 8 of them, left that house and left me by myself. Now here I have my niece's father dying in front of me, and no one to help me. Put this man in a bathtub, to give him CPR, to put water on him. It took me 2 hours to bring him back to life, because I was determined not to let my niece's father die. And the sad thing is everybody that ran out of the house who was an active user didn't even know what to do, because they were too busy involved in their own addiction to realize that this shit happens. Here's their friend dying in their bathroom, and they don't even know how to bring him back to life. So a lot of people aren't aware whether they're, around addicts, live with addicts, or are active users themselves and are around addicts every day, what to do in that situation. So now people have Narcan because that's the easiest way. But what do you do if you don't have Narcan?
The addiction is becoming so overwhelming. A couple weeks ago in Portland, the rescues called MedQ in Portland. They responded to so many overdoses that they ran out of Narcan. They actually went to the shelter where they keep Narcan to take theirs so they could have it on MedQ. It's becoming so bad. If that tells you that rescue runs out, it tells you how bad and how much it's becoming out there. We've got 45 minutes or so to still go. I'd like to start getting some questions from the crowd.
Does Narcan work? Does it revive someone every time? Is it a guarantee or no?
High percentage. Nothing's a guarantee.
Tell them how many times Sarah got Narcan.
Twice. Actually,
There's another guy that just got out of the pre-release, and he overdosed shortly after he left. They had to Narcan him 3 times before he came back.
depends on the potency of the heroin in your system. You have to have enough Narcan in your system to override the drug. If they don't override the drug fast enough, your brain dies.
And it's not like a medication you take.
No.
Like, you guys know how to take, like, they stab that into your chest to scary stuff.
Before you ask you a question, I was just going to ask you a question. Is Bridgeton Rescue carrying it now?
Yeah.
So even locally. And you had a question, Brad?
Yeah. Just for the crowd more. How'd you get your fix? Like, what crime how would you support your money out for it? You weren't working. If you don't want to answer
Are you
that,
talking to
I'm
us?
sorry.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for having the courage to speak in front of a large group like this, but just for them, how would you get your fix once you were using?
Once it became a need,
Yeah.
like a need,
Yeah.
it didn't matter who it was, you would steal.
Yeah.
Lie, cheat, and steal anybody, and you think that you wouldn't. And every time you did it, you would know that it's wrong. You even have like an emotional breakdown over it, but you were sick. So that's what you would do. You would steal. You would write bad checks. You would steal people's credit cards. You'd steal stuff from the store and sell it, like, to people with the drugs. I mean, that's, with me, that's how it was. You would even steal the drugs and then make enemies, and then constantly look over your shoulder that they're gonna, there are lots of terrible ways.
She's already talking about the need. The need becomes bigger as you become a user too. So right now you might be shooting a small amount of heroin. As your need grows, your system needs more to get high because now your system is adapting to the drugs, so you need more. So now you're committing bigger crimes to get more money, to get more drugs, and it's just a vicious cycle.
And you don't care about the consequences, so you're still driving without a license, among other things. But you're doing those things because you don't care. You don't care, like, it's not going to the store with the learner's permit. Oh, my dad's not here, I can't go to the store until he gets home. It's, I want drugs. I'm gonna go here and steal something. Where's the car keys? I'm grabbing them. I don't care if there's even license plates on it. I'm gone, I'm gonna go and get where I need to go. And I can't stress enough, I didn't wake up one day and say, wow, it sounds like a great idea to go do some heroin just once, just to see what it's like. Like, I started smoking pot first, and then, drinking. It all starts with the smallest things that you kind of like laugh about at first, and it spirals so out of control. What about you? What did you guys do to get your drugs?
I had a job,
Yeah, and then all your money's going to that.
and I couldn't work unless I was high, so.
Ladies, first I want to thank you for coming here to speak. I'm the SRO at Socrates, and we have some Socrates kids here. So it's nice that they can actually see, other than us law enforcement always talking to them, that somebody from their neighborhood that have actually experienced it. It means a lot, and I appreciate it.
I'm going to throw her under the bus again. Soccer student right here.
That's why I said it, and I say that about starting off with the marijuana, and so it's nice to actually hear 3 ladies that have actually started off and addressed, because I think it's a little bit more believable coming from you folks than us, because we're law enforcement. So I appreciate you taking that time and reinforcing what I've been telling my children all along.
And yeah, it's not, these guys don't tell us what to say. Like, this is just facts. Like, you're looking at it. I mean, there was a time, like, we had to work really hard to get to the point where we are in the jail, to live where we do, in the jail. When we first got there, I mean, you don't go to the bathroom alone. Number one or
You
number
really
two,
don't.
or, like, you don't do anything. You showering, you don't control the temperature. I mean, you don't control what you
In our
eat.
facility, if you're a known drug addict to us or you've been brought in on drug charges,
You can try.
one of the first things we're going to do is get a urine test so we have a baseline of what is in your system. Now, because we have to suspect drug addiction is so bad that most people coming in the jail, they plan on getting arrested. It's just a matter of when. So a lot of these people will conceal drugs within their body. Put it inside one of the holes of the body, swallow it, it'll come out later so they can use it in jail. So what we do to combat the problem in jail, we put them on a dry cell status. That is miserable. Have any of you guys been on that status? It's miserable.
Especially if you're sick. If you're sick, you can't flush your toilet when you want to. You don't have water when you want to. You can't shower while you are in dry cell. I was in dry cell, I think, 5 days.
You go to the bathroom and they.
It sits in your toilet, so they don't want to flush it because they have to check it.
In Kennebec County, they put you in the hole.
It's actually a hole.
You actually pee and poop in a hole.
And just simmers.
It's just.
I mean, it's
I have a
just
girl right here. Can you stand up just so we can hear you?
I just wanted to ask, do you think you would ever be in recovery if you had not gone to jail?
Absolutely not. I'd probably be dead.
Dead by now.
Absolutely dead. I know that fact.
I would have either killed myself or somebody else would have killed me. I mean, their situation, as far as, the lengths that they've taken to supply their habit, my story's a little bit different. I started out selling drugs. I got mixed in with the wrong kind of people. I got kidnapped, woke up in a hotel, locked in a hotel by a pimp in New Jersey. I got into the human trafficking and I escaped. I came back up to Maine and I started doing it on my own because my addiction was so bad and it was a lot easier than selling drugs. I just sat there and got high all the time. And now I deal with that. I deal with the things that I've put myself through. So yeah, if I'd never come to jail, I probably wouldn't be sober. I'd definitely be dead.
Now the sad part is with all their horrific stories and what they've done, there's another side that's even worse. A previous babysitter of mine made a bad choice. She got hooked up with a boyfriend, not knowing he was a drug dealer at the time. She had somebody who went to Lake Region, graduated from Lake Region. Met this guy when she moved off to Portland. He went to work every day, same time, come home every day, same time. She assumed he was working. When he was a very methodical drug dealer. When he got locked up, next thing you know, she has no money. She finds out he's a drug dealer. She decides she's going to make a couple drug runs. Next thing you know, 2 of his friends ask her out to Conway, New Hampshire. And even though she had a little piece of crack cocaine, probably valued at about $20, it was that little, she was knocked unconscious. By the way, her, at the time, 6-month-old baby was in the car. Knocked unconscious, shoved in the trunk, driven from Ospey to Conway, New Hampshire, and Cranwell Mountain dumped in the water in front of the first building and is dead. So, as much as their stories is horrific, they're still alive. These are not fake stories, guys. A lot of your teachers know who I'm talking about. Okay? Now, here's another sad part of incarceration. The recidivism rate of coming back. I'd like to see all 3 of these girls make it. The reality is, and they're going to hate to hear me say this,
One of us will come back.
try 2. two of you.
Only to torture you. That's the only
I will never be laid off working at the jail. I have guaranteed overtime almost year-round because of all the visits they come to the jail for. You ask any law enforcement officer that's off to the side of the road, it's the same people over and over and over. It is very hard to get away from not only the addiction, but let's say when these three get out, they've already talked about their friends all doing the drugs. If they go out and go back and hang with the same friends, what are they going to be around?
same thing.
Drugs. So, are they more apt to use again when they go back out hanging with the same friends? It's hard to cut your ties. But if you don't cut those ties, you're going to go back to the same way of life. In the last 2 years at the jail, I have sat down with many different people. I've probably said it specifically to about 10 that we're going to find you dead eventually because they're coming in so bad. Out of those 10 that I've talked to one-on-one, 3 of them are now deceased. So this is a hard fact and reality, guys. Any more questions?
Hey, Brittany, could you talk more about when you found that the man dead and how did you react? Did you feel like you had to get out then, or what kept you in, or did you get out then?
You mean as far as using?
Yeah.
I still continue to use because it's an addiction. But finding him and realizing like everybody just left him. Like, what if that would have been me? If that would have been me, I would have been dead because everybody would have left. I was the only one that stayed. I continued to use for about a year and a half, 2 years after. It didn't stop. Things like that kind of make your addiction worse because you start using drugs to, at least I started using drugs to numb a feeling, a pain, some sort of emotion that you just don't want to feel anymore. And I was in so much emotional pain with my kids that I got high. Now, I grew up with a brother who had addiction my whole life, and I'd always told myself I'd never get that bad. If I ever got that bad, I would go get help. It's not that easy. Not that easy at all. I look back and I think about everybody who tried to help me. I went to a detox and I went right back to using. I've been kicked out of shelters. The only place I can't seem to get kicked out of is jail. It's the only place I can't get kicked out of. And the places that are meant to help you don't. I guess maybe finding somebody dead should have opened my eyes. I think being sober now and hearing about, one of my really good friends who recently just died, she has a little girl and she'd been in jail for a while and she was supposed to go down to Florida to go get her daughter, and instead she got out and used and she died. Her child that depended on her, that, adored her mother, will never see her mother again because her addiction was more important. And I hate her for that because I know how much that little girl loved her mother, and now she's never going to see her again. She's not going to understand why. She's going to grow up. And I find that a lot of people who use drugs and have addictions is because they grow up with some sort of dysfunction in their life growing up, whether it be emotionally, an emotional abusive parent, a parent with addiction, or, the most common reason is there's some sort of history to it. Now, I'm afraid that little girl is going to grow up and think about losing her mother and start becoming an addict. It's a cycle that starts, whether it's genetic or something that they've experienced in their life, and it's sad.
Anybody? Right here.
It sounds like the three of you have engaged in rehabilitation. You just said it didn't work. Do the three of you have any suggestions for what would make the rehabilitation process more effective?
You have to want it.
Rehabilitation, that's a lifelong thing to do, though. Because at any point, that decision making, you could just choose to go the other way and it's over. For the rest of your life, once you start using, be it at the beginning, for the rest of your life, it's always going to be an issue. You're always going to have to be proving to your own person, to yourself, that you can get through your whole life making healthy choices. So I mean, it does help to talk to people, like us that have been there, to see them succeed. But that's the problem. Is the success rate is so small that you're just better off just not to do them at all. Just don't start at all. Because I mean, I've done everything. I've done outpatient, methadone clinic maintenance. I did that for years, to the point where I got complacent. You really do have to just want it. You're right. You just have to get to the point where you're sick of your life. You're just sick of it, and you just have to start climbing that mountain.
But even being sober, there's days where you get sick of your life.
Absolutely.
You're like, it's so much easier to go back
Yeah.
and get high than it is to stay sober, but that's what your disease wants you
Coping
to do.
skills.
Right.
We need more resources more programs that teach you how to cope with the problems that set your triggers off. Essentially.
Got a question over here?
You were talking about, you were hoping that your niece wouldn't take this experience and later in her life end up being addicted.
Right.
That made me think of adverse childhood experiences, which is what we're hearing, what we're learning about, that for people who have major things happen in their lives when they're young, it leads to drug and alcohol abuse, incarceration, lots of things that we try to make sure don't happen for kids. The major thing that they're figuring out helps people to get out of, the hole, like, that happens because of the adverse childhood experiences you've had, negative things in your life. The pain you're trying to dull with an addiction is having an important person in your life that you can talk to, that you look up to, like a role model and a mentor. Did you guys have somebody like that?
I have my father. My father's my best friend, but at the same time, I have an abusive mother. So it was like they conflicted with each other. I had my dad growing up, but my dad also worked. He was the one who took care of our family, so he wasn't around as much as he should have. So I was always left with my mother. So I would take off, go get drunk. I can remember drinking beer, jumping on trampolines, jumping into a pine tree out in Newfield. But yeah, I had a positive role model when he was
One over here?
I have a quick question. If you could write a perfect script, and if you didn't go back and recommit and make the same mistakes again, if you could write a perfect story of where you really want to be with your life, and apparently from what I've heard, that's going to be tough, what would you do with your life?
I started smoking weed in high school.
Say what?
I would have never started smoking weed in high school because that's where it all began.
What kind of career? Where would you have been? What would you have aspired to be?
What did we want to do? Like where
Yeah.
If we
were
could write our
before?
history
Yeah.
instead of being an addict, what would we have rather have seen our life be like?
I would have finished college. I would have finished.
I just graduated from high school with my GED at 30 years old. I've been trying to accomplish that since I've been 25. I've been married, have houses, I've had cars.
Leah, what'd you go to school for? What'd you go to college for?
I just made it through liberal arts, general studies. I started with criminal justice. That's it. SMCC.
That was your goal?
That was my brother's an ICE agent. I wanted to follow in his footsteps. But I couldn't go to class unless I was high. I mean, it's disgusting. So ended up changing that major because that just didn't make sense. And then after that, I stopped going to class. I have student loans still that I'm paying. They're taking my tax refund because I wasn't paying my bills. I was going to get messed up. But yeah, so.
Wasn't there a second question?
Yeah, it was kind of a follow-up to Mr. Vodka's question over there. He was asking, where do you need help and everything? my question is, where can your family members help, or where can people help you? You know, there's programs that are out there, but,
Answer this.
yeah.
One of the things that I've seen, I've been 17 years at the Sheriff's Department, you say, where are the family members? At the beginning, they're all there. But over time, even your family members, your mother, father, husband, wife, whatever, they give up on you. Because no matter what they do and how much they've helped you, whether it be money, set you up, get you back in school, have you move back home, it just, the trust just goes away over time because they're just doing it over and over and over. You guys have a different answer to that.
No, I mean, that's exactly it. Once you burn those bridges, it seems like you're going to be working for years to get it back. And you better hope you have a very forgiving and loving circle of people around you. But you know what? One thing is, everybody has the same question. Why don't you just stop? Just stop using drugs. Just stop. You know it's bad for you. Just stop. And it gets to a point where it's just not that simple. That sometimes, depending on what you're using, can be just as dangerous. You know, you need some professional help. But it's nice to have some, if you have people in your life that are using already and you want them to stop, it really goes a long way to not tell them how stupid they are, how much of a loser they are. You know, you just have to have some empathy, some compassion. And if the world had more of that, you know.
I mean, your family, you know, depending on how old you are, they have a right to get you into treatment, but most places, the waiting list for treatment is months, some of them over a year long.
And expensive.
And they're expensive. If you don't have insurance, you're going to be waiting a very long time for a scholarship back to get into rehab.
Limited bed space within the state with all the different drug rehabs. Some people even get out-of-state drug rehabs, just very little bed space. And cost, who's paying the bill? Is it something that it's court ordered where the state of Maine is going to pay these taxes? Are they going to be billing your insurance company if you even have insurance? Are they going to make them foot the bill? Some people, I've seen some people in the jails in front of a judge. They give them a choice, rehab or jail. And they pick jail.
Because they know that waiting in jail, they're going to sit in jail anyway until they go to rehab. And that's not even a guarantee. So they're just like, you know what, I'd rather go to jail. I'd rather go to prison. I'd rather be incarcerated.
Got two questions. Hold on, Sean. I'm going to take the young lady first.
Okay. One of you was
Stand up.
Okay. Thank you. So one of you was saying how when you, I forgot. The point of it being is, what if somebody, you were saying how you seem like you look stupid for not trying to hide it when it was obvious. What if there's somebody that you see that is trying to hide it and you're not stupid, you see it? How do you
pull them aside and call them out on it?
How do you try to get them to?
You have to talk to them. You have to pull them aside and be like, listen, you know, I know what's going on. I see how you are. If you need help, you can come to me. I'm not going to put you on blast, because that's the biggest thing that scares people away, is if they're trying to hide it, that means they haven't admitted it yet. And they can't get help until they're ready to say, you know, I need help. But if you call them out in front of all your friends,
and they'll start avoiding you too.
Yeah.
Don't let that happen.
Just be like, hey.
Yeah, just don't let that happen.
Anybody else? Another one? Come on, guys, step up, especially my seniors.
Did Sean have a question?
I do have a question. I also want to thank all the ladies for coming. I think it's very brave of you to come here, even if you were told you had to be. I don't know.
This was all volunteer.
Yeah.
I actually took work off to actually come here.
One thing I found when I worked in law enforcement, and it's really hard, and it's an occupational hazard, and I think, where's Mr. Beaumont? Mr. Beaumont touched on it in the class that I was in, is we as human beings, sometimes we can't separate the crime from the person. You can't separate the bad deed from the reality of where they are, and I really appreciate you guys sharing your stories. But I want to kind of come back full circle to how you guys started on this path of addiction, because when I worked in law enforcement, I briefly taught the DARE program, the drug abuse program, and one of the main tenets of that is that, and it used to bother me to say this to the students, that it's all about peer pressure, right? So if you avoid peer pressure, you can avoid drugs, and then you can avoid the addiction that goes with that down the road. It's not that simple, obviously. We know that. So I guess I'm kind of, in general, asking what in general triggers it. I think Brittany touched on it with like a feeling or a depression, those kinds of things. But for the other ladies, what started you down that path? Was it boredom? Was it curiosity? Was it depression? Was it whatever?
Wanting to be in that in crowd in school. Because that, in my generation, that was a big thing. That was before bullying was being recognized as bullying in school. You know, if you weren't that cool kid that hung out with the kids that smoked pot or drank beer after school, you were getting picked on. You know, you weren't accepted. You weren't okay to be around. So a lot of people drank, smoked weed. I started taking ecstasy when I was 15. I took ecstasy for the first time when I was 15.
You know, it wasn't like that for me.
It wasn't like that at my school.
We used to, like, if we won a track meet or like a field hockey game, I went to Saukville Valley. You kids know what I mean. I'm sure you've heard it, like the pit parties and things, places. I mean, there's no. Listen, I went to that high school. I'm not stupid, and I know that they've heard this too, because that was like the way we'd go and we'd celebrate. And once we all got together, it was like that environment. You know, you'd have a bonfire, and it turned into like this. You know. Doing everything, stealing your parents' booze, finding somebody, trying to bribe them to buy you something, and then, you know, once you have a few drinks, then you're smoking pot, and then next thing you know, you're out of your mind, so you're doing really whatever anyways. And it's just, so it wasn't even like, something like, you're not gonna be cool if you don't hit this joint or something. It was more or less, everybody was truly doing it. So I would just avoid it at all costs. Had I gone back, like all the money that I wasted, everything that I lost, the embarrassment, because you put yourself into pretty ridiculous situations that you can't come back from. I wouldn't even go. It's pointless.
Right. What triggers that? What's some triggers to use it? What are some triggers to use?
Like depression, stress, hide your emotions altogether. Anxiety is a huge one, huge one.
But even talking about your addiction sometimes, like we'll be in meetings and, you know, people, what's called glorifying.
Yeah, romance
that
and drug use.
Will definitely trigger, you know, glorifying their uses or, you know, talking about amounts or ways that they do it. That's a big trigger.
Yeah.
Sometimes I leave a meeting and if I feel like if I was on the outside and I left that meeting, I'd probably go get high because those people made me feel that way. Because it's just, it's an emotion. It's, regardless of whatever emotion is you're feeling, there's that addiction attached to it because it's a natural trigger for your brain to be like, hey, I don't want to feel this no more, or I don't want to deal with this. It's like when you wake up and you get out of bed some days, you're like, I don't want to get out of bed. It's that same feeling. It's, I don't want to feel anything today.
Oh, celebrations, accomplishments?
Celebrations,
yes.
Funerals, yeah, anything. You're looking for an excuse to use always.
Did anybody out of the three of you start dealing to support your own habit?
Dealing drugs.
Yeah, selling them? So, anybody out here? Anything else? Good, stand up.
I have a family that doesn't kind of drugs, so I'm a survivor from it. My brother would always come home with his buddy when time was wrong. When I was little, I always come to that was when I worry about your brother, but your brother's doing well, he's my real brother. So I always worry about my family.
The only thing I could recommend to you is try and get intervention from. Seriously.
Yeah, but he won't stop. His friend's been packing it. He just
until somebody intervenes, you don't know if somebody will stop. But you don't want to be that one to come home and find somebody that you waited that one too many times.
Yeah.
You have something? Done?
You guys obviously you're in a program, you're feeling comfortable coming talking here. What's your plan from here on out? What's your goal to,
after release? After
you leave or beyond? Yeah, that's what you're asking.
Before you answer that, for those of you that don't know, Mark over here is a community programs officer. So part of his job, they go from being in the jail to a pre-release center. So now they're still confined, they're still incarcerated, a little bit better living. And now part of the process, they start on community work programs. Then they eventually, Mark, as part of his job, finds them outside work. So in the community, we have a lot of employers that actually will hire our convicted felons. They're not all felons, one of them is not a felon. But they hire our inmates. And a lot of times, they'll actually stay employed after they get released. So it's a stepping stone. Meanwhile, also as part of their release, they're not allowed to keep their paychecks.
Yeah.
So here they're working. Brittany, how many jobs you got now?
I have 2.
2 jobs. How much money
86
can
hours.
they keep a week?
$25.
$25. Even if they're making $400 or $500 take home, $25. And they're in jail, but because they're in the pre-release stand, they got to pay rent.
$98 a week.
And we pay
But
taxes.
the rest of their money is going into an account. So hopefully, as we release them into society, we're not just kicking them out with nothing. We're hopefully going to release them with a job and some money to go get that first apartment, some startup furniture, and the basic needs. So we don't just throw them out and then they go commit a crime and come back because they have nothing else. So that's part of the
But that's
release.
after we burn through all of our money that we make. You know, there's a lot of people that plan their relapse. They know, all right, I have, you know, $5,000 saved up. I get out in 2 weeks. I have a job. I'm gonna have enough time to take a couple weeks off from work, and I'm just gonna go get high, and then go back to work and continue their life.
That's not the point of the program.
No,
Like, it's
but
definitely
that's
a
definitely
great
what
program.
people do. And without the right guidance, which we have AA, NA, you know, we have Brenna, we have Roberts, you know, look like they're there for us to talk to because that's part of their job, you know, is putting us on the right path. I think a lot of us, you know, have pretty much our head straight, but that's no guarantee.
I get a story real quick. Got a gentleman a job, got 2 jobs. He's a cook, IHOP and Old Fort Tavern. Worked very hard. He left on a Friday with $3,000 in his pocket. He was found overdosed on Saturday night with no money in his pocket. He was in the program for 3 months. He went out, he went to the same dealer that he stole from before, and they believe it was a hot shot, and he overdosed, he died. His mother was in that same house in CCSO. You guys remember Hess?
Yeah.
His mother was incarcerated at the same program, okay? She found out that her son had overdosed while she was in pre-release. You know, that's a good story right there. You know, he had the money, we set him up an apartment, he chose not to go get the apartment, but to get high, they found him dead in a hotel, less than 24 hours to get released. Boyle, what's his name? Who's the fiance died? Bonin. We have a young lady incarcerated. Her fiance was incarcerated, got out on a Friday. She came over the house on Tuesday. He was about 2 weeks. He overdosed. She found out that he overdosed while she was incarcerated. Okay? Now she only had like probably...
She had her dad climb into the house because he hadn't answered the phone in 4 days. And she had to have somebody go into the house and find her husband dead in their apartment.
She was my roommate.
Roommate? Yeah. She had 2 weeks left in her sentence, okay? Now, the sheriff has the power to let her go for hardship like that, okay? Myself, CPO Roberts, we're talking about, fought hard to keep her in the house, okay? Why did we keep her in the house? Why did they want to get released early? Okay, because we gotta let her go home, for furloughs, you know, we get her furloughs, I gotta check her every day. But she said, why didn't we let her go to anything? I didn't want her to overdose. I want her to go home and find her overdose because her fiance just died. She's an addict. Why would I let her get out early? And then what's she going to look to? The trigger, we're talking about triggers. You know what I'm saying? Her fiance just died. They were just married. I mean, they were getting married in a couple of months. They bought a house. Do you think she might have had the chance to go dabble back into heroin? And she would overdose.
And she will literally tell you, that was her life. She's been with Daniel since she's been, what, 15?
High school.
It was her high school.
Yeah.
It was her husband.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, you know, that was her life. You know, they lived for each other. And she lost him. She's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
She was crying to us, girls. I don't know what I'm gonna do, Lindsay. I can't get a hold of Danny.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get a hold of him. She was calling her aunt to go check on him. He wasn't answering the door. All the doors were locked. The windows were locked. She said, I don't care. Bust the window out.
Door and
Her aunt ended up calling the cops. She got a call from the cops at the pre-release telling her husband was dead.
And I mean, she can't just leave and go take care of it. No, she's in jail because of her addiction and her choices that she made. So she's there, stuck, having to get permission to do, you know, anything small as a phone call, big as going.
She wanted to go home that night.
Yeah.
Like, we had to convince her. She thought we were the biggest jerks in the world. No, we want to keep you alive.
Yeah.
If you go home right now, you're probably going to, turn to heroin. Again, she kind of agreed eventually, a couple days later, so hopefully she's fine right now.
Got about 5 minutes left, guys, so let's get those last questions in.
I just have a question. What is your guys', like when you get out, what is your motivation?
The kids, children, family, mending fences with everybody that we've heard. I'm relatively young, I'm 30 years old. You know, still young enough to turn it around, you know.
My biggest problem is I lost my kids. It hurt. You know, I'm thought to myself, it's over. I failed. You know, I lost that chance to be a mother. You know, past year, I've realized, you know, my kids still have a choice. They can be like, you know, I want to meet my mom. I want to know who my mom is. They were 5 and 6 when they got taken from me. They still remember me. They still see my mother. I don't want to be that strung out junkie who, you know, when my kids come and find me, they don't want nothing to do with me. You know, I want to be that person that they can be like, you know, this is my mom. You know, this is somebody that I want in my life. I don't want to be turned away and then ruin it a second time and just destroy myself more.
We want people to be proud of us.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had that feeling in a long time.
Question over here.
I was just wondering, what is pre-release?
It's another building outside of the jail, but it's still its own separate entity, but we don't have the locked doors. It's almost like a college dorm room would be a good example. So that's the building we use to reintegrate into society and get
People
them
who are
their jobs.
incarcerated, like me, I've been in since last September.
And it's hard to get there. They gotta go through a lot of steps to get there.
But most jails don't have the option, county jails, prisons have it, but county jails don't have the option of pre-release. But where you're in jail long term, you get what's called institutionalized. Now, when you take somebody who's institutionalized and you just throw them back into society, they most likely just come back. Now, what pre-release is supposed to do is stabilize, you know, your mental and your physical state to be brought back into society. It's not throwing you into society head first. It's gradually getting you back into society around people to function. You know, so it's supposed to bring, you know, less rate of people coming back is what it's meant for.
Any other questions?
A lot of people say that when you go back into the same environment that you were before, that you're most likely to relapse. Do you think that when you get out, you're trying to get into a new environment and you need to stay away from that in order to succeed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hands down, yes, that's exactly true. Absolutely.
You all started while you were in high school as teenagers. Started with pot, alcohol. Did you think that you could stop initially, whenever?
Oh, yeah.
That you wouldn't spiral the way that you have, the way you are now?
Never in a million years.
And it doesn't happen.
I think that I would ever smoke crack or shoot heroin. I used to be petrified of needles. You want to draw my blood, I'm running.
Addiction is a sickness.
Just from starting with those initial things.
It was like a decade of I can quit whenever I want.
All right, guys, we're out of time. I want to see all my seniors stand. All of them. First, have fun tomorrow. Second, choices. If you see one of your friends tomorrow night making bad choices, be there for them. I want all of you home safe after prom, having a great night. Take care of each other. Have fun. Have a good prom. All right? Thank you.